again. What's going on in Berkeley?
Oh, I think that people are all confined, and some people have become ill and some have died, but not at the same rate that we're seeing in the rest of California, and certainly not at the rate we are seeing in Italy or Spain right now, or in New York City.
Your books, your studies are so important in in the world for everyone that wants to figure out something about social conditioning and bodies in society. So now every single body is a potential vehicle of contagion. That is to say, we are pushed to fear physical contact. What kind of word to come do you imagine?
Oh, this is, I think, the large question. First of all, when will the world recommence? And will it be the same world that commences when it does? Will it be a transfigured world? What will we have lost? And what, if anything, will we have gained? And that is very hard to speak about. The horizon at this moment is such that we know we will not live with this forever, but we do not know when it stops. So we are in a very difficult predicament of not being able to know our future and feeling ourselves in, perhaps a kind of indefinite detention, right? That's the term used in prison language. But I would hope, that we would grasp that we are globally interdependent and equally vulnerable, and that this constitutes a kind of equality of a global kind, of a post-nationalist kind. I would hope that we grasp that. And I see even now in the struggles over manufacturing medications that there are those who want to keep those medications when they emerge for the nation where they are developed, and others who say no, we send whatever medications we discover or whatever vaccine we develop, we send it to the most vulnerable in the world, wherever they are. So I would hope that nationalism and the market economy is weakened by this event, and that we understand our deep connections to others, our vulnerability, our requirements for healthcare, and that understanding breaks the boundary of national identity.
Someone tells this is the end of the globalized world. Some others tells this is the end of capitalism. What do you think?
Well, I think that there have always been at least two ways of understanding globalization. I mean, globalization, of course, describes those economic and financial processes that are global in nature, that transcend national boundaries. But they tend to be corporate interests that have infiltrated the global south, or been responsible for producing enormous differences in wealth. On the other hand, there have always been global forms of solidarity. So even the anti-globalization movement has had a global character, right? It was against the first sense of globalization, and it was putting forth a second sense, at least if not globalization, of global solidarity. So I think it is a battle. I cannot predict. I think we have to struggle for the more humane alternative, for the one that promotes social equality across the globe, and establishes the limits to capitalism and the necessity of medicine as an affordable or as a social good to which everyone is entitled. And this is a battle. We are having that battle.
You're a great philosopher and you are a great activist. So what's the link between philosophy, books, lectures, and activism?
Well, as you know, since I believe you're a philosopher too,
yes.
That philosophy always seeks to go to the root of the problem, right? And you go to the root of the problem. That makes philosophy radical. If you fail to go to the root of the problem, then I don't know, you're doing a surface philosophy maybe, but you're not going deep to the root. So radical, the origins of the word radical, I think, combine philosophy and politics. And by radical, I don't mean extremist. I simply mean willing to see the structures that constitute reality, the reality we take for granted, right? When Trump is asked, well, rich in the United States have access to these tests, or only the rich will have access to whatever drugs are developed. He says, yes, that is the way life goes, right? So that is the way life goes. That means he takes it for granted. It's naturalized. It's treated as the common way of things. It can't be changed. And he says this just, 10 days after the Bernie Sanders campaign has gone down. Now, Trump is he's actually trying to naturalize, to make normal radical social and economic inequality, and to claim this is a structure of reality. Well, a philosopher can come back and say, what makes you think that is at what point in time did that get accepted by some people as the structure of reality? And then oppose another kind of imaginary, another way of organizing the world that would dispute that assumption and expose it for the specific kind of construction it is. It is not natural. It is not necessary. It is in fact insidious, and there are a number of ethical and political reasons to oppose it.
And what about education? How philosophy could change the way we live in society, the social conditioning, and the way we think? Because in this moment, there are so many fake news about coronavirus, and it is so difficult to make public debate on social networks. So how your opera could help in education? So how we could change the school education now?
Yes, well, I think there are great philosophical texts, right? So when I used to teach the introduction to philosophy, I always taught Plato, I taught the Apology, I taught the opening discussions in Plato's works on politics and in the Republic, and you watch these conversations, right? And the students get very, very engaged, right? Thrasymachus identifies power, right? Or he says, what is the best way to run? Socrates asks, what's the best way to run a society? Thrasymachus says, it's always run by power. And then, why do you think that is true? This old Socratic, you read something, it says that this virus was fabricated as a biochemical means to attack populations. Okay, it is manifestly a conspiracy theory. But how do you show that? Well, you ask them, well, what is the authority? Who says that is true? Why do they say that is true? What grounds do they give? Is it a good argument? Is it based on something? what kind of authority are we giving to the internet at the moment we say, oh, well, the internet said? I mean, and people do say that, oh, I saw it on the internet, therefore it is true, therefore it is valid. So if our job is to test truth and validity, right? We do that in logic, we do that in epistemology, we do that in ethics, then we should be reading our Plato. We never lose our Plato, but we should be learn how to read digital reality critically, and be helping our students to develop critical judgment so that they can ask certain key questions. Who says this? Who refutes it? On what grounds? Who are the people? How is it reported? Is it somebody's fantasy? Is it grounded through evidence? I think we should be reading both texts with our students. We should be moving between them so that they can see the immediate relevance of philosophical and critical thinking for understanding the world and judging what is true.
And your books were criticized by Catholic Church because they in Italy they tell it it's the gender theory.
Yeah.
Can you tell us in a few words what is gender? For people who for people who don't read yet your books, it's difficult, but I would like to stimulate people to read your books. And to me, it's important to tell that there are fake news too.
Yes. Well, I mean, I will say maybe just two things about what is fake. I mean, first, the critique of gender ideology assumes that there is one gender theory, but gender is a vast field with many different positions and internal conflicts and interdisciplinary approaches. And every first-rate research institution has gender studies somewhere in its curriculum or perhaps as a program or a department. So it is accepted as a field of study. There's no one view. When you have a field of study, it's something worth asking questions about.
An open debate.
Yes, it is an open debate and ongoing, and there are literally tens of thousands of practitioners who have very different points of view. Many of them don't agree with me, and I didn't found this. I didn't create this. I became very well known in Europe and Latin America because of the work, and the work was translated, but I was not at the beginning. Okay, so let's just say that. When Simone de Beauvoir said that one is not born a woman, but rather becomes one, she was saying something very interesting. You're born and you're assigned a sex on the basis of what doctors or other authorities believe on the basis of observation is your sex. And but does that tell us how you will live your body or how you will live your life, who you will love, what kind of job you will take, whether or not you choose to have children, whether or not you wish to change that sex in time legally? It doesn't tell us any of those things. In fact, all of those things are open from the start. You could be born female and grow up as a young girl and a woman and become a mother and a heterosexual and reproduce and a member of the Catholic Church and be perfectly at peace with that trajectory, which in my view is fine. It's fine. But it doesn't mean that everybody has that trajectory. So how do we, if we say that the sex does not determine who you become or how you live your life, then we're saying there's a gap, right? There is sex, of course, but then there's how it's interpreted and how it's lived. So gender, just gender, it's the way you live your body. That's the interpretation you give to your assigned sex or to one that you may have taken on. But there's a field of culture and a field of experiment. There's a field of differences. There's so many different kind of women, right? There's so many different kind of men. And there are a number of people who say, neither one of those categories really works for me. I'd like to make another one or maybe several. And in those cases, that's part of the human diversity of who we are. And that diversity is important. It's even something that we need to learn to respect and honor about one another. I think it's ethically obligatory that we honor the diversity of ways of living our bodies, whether we understand them as God-given or as given through nature. I mean, I suppose that's what I would call gender.
Thank you so much. Besides the health emergency, what is the greatest danger you feel in the future?
Well, from this perspective now, I would say that I fear the consolidation of authoritarian or dictatorial regimes. I fear the abandonment of the poor and the homeless and the vulnerable. And I fear that those who deny climate change will continue to destroy the earth once it recommences, once the world recommences, and that the young people of this world will have to fight for the planet, will have to fight for healthcare, will have to fight for social and economic equality, and to fight, frankly, against racism and nationalism and xenophobia. So I can't say that there's one thing. It feels like a cluster, but that's the picture that I fear most.
Distancing blow to being with, but yet we perceive a strong sense of community. Is it an illusion, in your opinion?
No. I think it's surprising to everyone that there can be communities of care, even though we practice social distancing. There are people who go to groceries. It's a different division of labor within the community. People are calling each other or Zooming or Skyping across the world to connect. There's a deep desire for connection. We are in similar predicaments, although we're living them differently and with different severity. And my heart goes out to Italy, the numbers of death and the inability to always have the facilities to care for the dying and the ill or even the dead. And it's a heartbreaking situation. But I do believe that it can cut across some other ideological lines. We can recognize our interdependency, our vulnerability, and our capacity both to harm and to help each other. And this is the one thing about the virus that I'm really struck by, because each of us, yes, we're vulnerable. We can be infected, or we have been, or we are, and some of us don't even know. But we're also infecting. We're also potentially infecting. So we are creatures who can suffer harm, but also do harm. And both of those things are true about us at once. And all of our social relations are determined by that duality. And this is a way to both feel one's vulnerability, but also one's sense of responsibility. And it connects us to others in another way. My body is not just mine. I don't just possess it over here as a unit. It's always in contact, in potential relation, affecting others, affected by others. And that allows us to rethink who we are as selves. And it lets us also, I believe, rethink the fact that we are both vulnerable and agentic. That is to say, we have certain kinds of powers and responsibilities. And we also are bound to each other in this way because this is our common predicament. I mean, maybe it's an existential predicament that is heightened under the conditions of the pandemia, but maybe also it's the position of all of us who depend on healthcare and who are seeing that healthcare systems are radically inadequate, and that we have not taken that as an absolute social good that should be there for everyone. And of course, I understand we cannot prepare for everything, but still, the fact that these preparations were so poorly made in the US, oh my God, it wasn't even considered to be a responsibility of government to look out for diseases that could infect massive numbers of people. It's like, no, we're not going to think about that. Well, why not? Why wouldn't that be part of a health policy, a governmental plan? So I think there will be a call for a much stronger commitment to healthcare as a universal right of social existence.
Judith Butler, I could stay to listen to you hours and hours. And thank you so much for your foresights and your great philosophical thinking. And really, I'm so glad to the honor to interview you. And thank you so much, really.
Well, thank you. Please know I have great solidarity with Italy and all of what you're going through, and the world admires you and feels with you. That's my impression. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.